What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Swing for the Fences MLB show here on the Run Pierce Sports YouTube channel. Talking today's Wednesday, now 6-game slate. Just got news right before we jumped live that Braves and Mets will be postponed. We've got some weather issues in Cincinnati. We've got what I think, Mangone, is one of the ugliest pitching slates of the season so far, at least when you factor in ownership and price and all that stuff. So tough slate tonight for sure. Looks like a slate I'll be going perhaps a rather extreme contrarian route. We'll see. We'll talk through the 6 games that we have left. We'll do, the good stuff at the end, the favorite pitchers, home runs, play of the day, all that good stuff, favorite stacks. We'll break it down for you guys and hopefully pick some winners. It's going to be kind of a crazy slate tonight, but we'll do our best to get to the bottom of it. We'll go game by game as we always do. Mangone, I'll throw it over to you. How you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, I am definitely with you on everything you said with the slate, right? It's kind of ugly. I have a similar viewpoint of I've been on the playbook and I've been diving into everything. And the more I keep thinking about the slate, I just want to be different. I don't know how to or how I'm going to yet, because I think we have 2 other games that have some big weather concerns that we need to kind of figure out. But pitching, it's clear as day. Everyone's just going to play the top end pitchers, right? The guys above 9K, they're just going to get a shit ton of ownership. Not that you shouldn't play them, but if you want to get different, all you got to do is play a pitcher probably below $9,000. And you'll start to get pretty different right then and there. Also, because there's just top-end pitchers, you're not going to be able to get all these really good bats that are on the slate. Yes, we just lost the Braves, but keep in mind we have the Yankees, who are expensive. The Padres, they have some expensive bats. Yes, they have some values. I mean, the Red Sox aren't dirt cheap. They do have some guys in the lineup that help make it work, but some of the top-end guys aren't. You have Texas, where they got some expensive guys, and then some other values you can mix in, and then Houston, who's super expensive, and then Orioles, so I didn't even mention them. There's just a lot of expensive offenses. Even Cincinnati kind of is expensive, where not everything aligns, and you're just going to have to take some stands, and out of nowhere, Oakland becomes very chalky today, which is really weird, but it's an ugly slate, and when there's an ugly slate, DC, I want to make sure I'm trying to find ways to be different. I don't think I'm there yet, but I'm hoping by the end of the show, I can kind of get there and we can kind of break it down and help the people out.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those sites for me where I'm just accepting that a lot of the time I'm going to end up being wrong. And, these expensive pitchers are going to be the best pitchers on the slate. But I just think there just seems so risky to me that, it's not how often you min catch, right? It's how much do you win when you're right. And I think that's at least for me, the motto of this slate. So I'll be taking some risks. There's no question about it. I've kind of made up my mind. And I'm going to have to play some pitchers, honestly, that I don't really want to play. I'm not comfortable playing, but it's just that the chalk pitchers, I don't want to play either. And they're more expensive. And like you said, there is places to spend your money on bats on this slate. So just going to be one of those slates for me. We'll see how it ends up at the end of the night. But with that, let's get to it. Let's jump into the first game on this slate. It is Milwaukee and Cincinnati. This game certainly is at some risk of delay, postponement. Listen, it's, I think, about to start raining, or maybe is raining in Cincinnati now. It certainly will be raining throughout the afternoon and evening as we go forward. The question, it looks like to me, man, going with the weather, obviously we'll get to everything else here in a second, is whether or not they can just play through the rain, which I do kind of think they can and kind of think they will. But again, that is obviously just a guess. We're going to have to monitor this one up to the early lock time. We should have probably mentioned that. 6:40 Eastern time does lock 25, 30 minutes before. Typical, obviously, with the shorter slate, they needed to include those early games. But let's assume for now that this game does play. We have Hunter Green on the mound for Cincinnati. We know about him, right? One of the kind of the boom bust pitchers in the league. A lot of home runs allowed, a lot of steals allowed, but a lot of strikeouts as well. I could see this start honestly going either way for him. And I do have Hunter Green as my favorite pitcher on the slate. but I'm playing 150 again on both sites, and I'll have plenty of Brewers too because he gives up power, he gives up speed, and this Brewers team has been hitting pretty well and running wild on the bases. So Hunter Green, he's 9,300 on DraftKings. He is 9,700 on FanDuel. He will be popular, certainly, kind of right up there, I think, with Dylan Cease. And then Brewers, Wade Miley will make his first start of the season. He did pitch in AAA back on April 5th, so it's kind of his turn. But he only threw 55 pitches in that one, coming back from a minor injury. I assume he'll be limited on pitch count here, which isn't a good thing for Wade Miley, right? Because he's the guy you kind of need to go 6 or 7 innings because he's not going to get a ton of strikeouts typically along the way. So I'm not playing Miley. I do like Hunter Green, and I do think you can make a case for both of these offenses. We'll throw it over to you for Reds and Brewers. What do you see here?
What is the Miley pitch count? I didn't know if he'd have one, but
so 55 is what he threw on April 5th. So, I mean, listen, he's a veteran. He's not a hard thrower. Sometimes those guys can just jump right up. You know what I mean? It's not like they're worried about him. You know what I mean? He is the type of pitcher who could just throw 80 pitches. But typically, coming off 55 pitches in his first outing of the year, you would see 65 to 70, which I think is the more, kind of reasonable expectation for Miley.
All right, let me try and sell you on Wade Miley. I don't know if I can. Let me try.
Listen, Mango. I could be sold on like any pitcher tonight. Like I'm desperate. I need someone to play because I don't want to play the chalk. And
I was too when I was doing the playbook. I said value arms, and I said
but they all suck. It's the problem.
Yeah. So I dove deeper in the Wade Miley. Now, if you go through his DraftKings stats, he has been really good against Cincinnati. So here are the numbers. This is since 2017. Now, I know he's not the same pitcher, but just hear me out. Don't cut me off yet. 36, 22, 25, 15, 10. And then this is where 2022 comes, where I know Wade Miley now changes, right, and is back to, being the Wade Miley we know now. 15, 8.5, and 29 in his last start against them in 2023. This Reds team strikes out a lot. It's a slate where we don't have value, and if we need, let's say we need the Yankees because they just went yard, or let's say we need, I don't know, like the Braves. The Braves aren't on the slate anymore, but any of the expensive bats, there's a lot of them on the slate. Let's say you need Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. Well, Wade Miley is going to be part of the equation. The Reds are the team that strike out the most in the league. There's upside here. I just don't think we can completely ignore it. He's a veteran. Typically, when the veterans that are ground ball pitchers that can kind of just battle through these innings, a great example is a John Lester, right? If you remember John Lester, we always tilted about him a little bit. These are the matchups where if they're going to do well, then it's here, right? It's not a crazy spot. So I think a lot of things are aligning. We're not just talking the matchup, right? We're talking DraftKings pricing. We're talking we're going to maybe need some big bats on this slate. We're losing some games. I just don't think it's the craziest route, especially with ownership being high. It just feels like all the stars are aligning for it to be a spot to take a chance on Wade Miley. I doubt you'll hear me suggest this too many other times this year, but I think with all the things aligning, the pricing on this top-end pitchers, the ownership, we want the big bats, the strikeouts that you could see, he's going to be 5% or lower. And it's an ugly pitching slate of chalk you don't want to play. I just think we got to take our chances with it. So, DC, have I sold you? And I'm sure you're laughing about something in the chat, making fun.
Yeah, there could be a lot of good comments in the chat. Yeah, the kid here would rather put his dick in. I assume that's supposed to say a meat grinder than start Miley in 2024. The kid was too eager to get out that comment. He couldn't proofread it. But I get it. I mean, if you told me for sure Miley was going to throw 85, 90 plus pitches, I think I could get on board. But this dude has one of the lowest strikeout rates in all of baseball last year. He's coming back from injury. I know there are strikeouts to be had against this lineup, but it's still a pretty tough lineup in general in a good, obviously, hitter's park. I only think he's going to throw 65 or 70 pitches. So
yeah,
you kind of combine
to be
them all.
fair, I didn't know that and before I like kind of talked myself into it. So
I mean, I don't know that for sure, but that's what I think is going to happen. So
yeah,
it's just,
it's fair.
I mean, what's his K prop? What's Miley's K prop? I haven't looked it up. Do you know? Go ahead and look that up for me.
Yeah, that's
I
actually
would put it at like 3.5 with, I mean.
No, that's a good question because I always like to lean on the Vegas numbers and everything. Let me see.
Especially when we're unsure of the pitch count, but I would guess 3.5 for Miley.
So on FanDuel, which I'm pulling up now on my phone, it is 3.5. So it's pretty damn low.
Which way is the juice?
It's minus 111 on the over. So barely.
Yeah. That's not great. That's not great.
Yeah. It's definitely not great. But to be fair, I don't know who you're going to talk me into as a cheap pitcher, but we'll obviously get into it. And I've talked way too much about Wade Miley for one show, maybe one entire year. But
you're good off from the Miley love for the rest of 2024. So Hunter Green, kind of talked about him. Thoughts on Hunter Green because he is going to be one of the more popular pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, I think he's a great option today. You could argue his price savings over Dylan Cease is better. I need to know the weather situation. And to be fair, if the weather is looking tough, I think a lot of people shift their ownership off of Green and you could get him low owned. So that's something else to talk about, that he could become a better play as the weather gets uncomfortable. So that's something I really want to be watching for. But I like Hunter Green. Really good matchup against this Brewers team. I'm not scared of this Brewers offense. So overall, I do think that we got to like Hunter Green. He's one of the top arms on this slate. And this Brewers lineup, I know you talked about there being some good plays, but there's some bad plays in there too, right? No one's scared of some of these guys. So I think overall, again, you can make a case for a lot of different sides. There's some other games coming up that I'm excited to talk about. I think the Reds, they're a little bit pricey for my liking, where I just don't think I'm going to get to them today. I think there's other contrarian offenses that I'm looking to maybe take a chance on, especially with this weather being dicey. I'm not super excited about bats in this game. It is an 8.5 total. You'll see a lot of these games today are between the 8 and 9.5 range. So all of them are fairly close and fairly similar.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say, I would expect the Brewers to really run wild on the base paths if they get a chance against Hunter Green. So Jackson Chourio, Kristen Yelich, Sal Frelick, Blake Perkins, Joey Ortiz, Bryce Terang. All of these guys are stolen base threats against Hunter Green. We know, we saw like the big Acuna game. He didn't even have any extra base hits and put up a monster number with the stolen bases. I think the Brewers have a lot of kind of sneaky upside against Hunter Green. Final note on this game for me, at least, I do think. Listen, it's like light rain, right? That's kind of forecasted all night long. I do think this is one of those scenarios where if they do decide to start the game, it's with the knowledge that it's going to rain during the game. And I do think in that scenario, they've kind of just decided that they're going to hope to play through the rain. Obviously, if it gets heavier or whatever, maybe they can't. But I will feel relatively comfortable if they start this game on time. If it starts in delay, I'm having a hard time seeing them play because I don't think the rain is going to completely let up long enough to get out there and warm up for an hour and then start the game. So that's probably the approach I'll take, I think, is I'm going to play this game. If it starts on time, if it does not, I will probably jump off. Obviously, we're still almost 2 hours out before first pitch here. Things could change weather-wise. We're going to have to monitor it all the way up, but that's my approach that I'm kind of hoping to take, at least right now. All right, that's a lot on Milwaukee and Cincinnati. Let's get to Chicago and San Diego. I think the most interesting game on this slate. We will have, I believe, Dylan Cease turn in as the most popular pitcher on this slate. I think that will for sure be true if we lose Hunter Green. But nevertheless, I do think Dylan Cease could see 40% ownership. People that have watched this show the last couple days, my strongest stand on both slates has been to fade the Yu Darvish chalk. He was the most popular pitcher on Monday. And yesterday I said I had absolutely no interest in Joe Musgrove, across 600 lineups across both sites. I had 0 shares of both those guys. I believe they both went negative. The big reason is this Cubs lineup is vastly improved. Highest walk rate in MLB against right-handed pitchers. That's a disaster for Dylan Cease, who has like the highest walk rate of any starter in baseball over the last couple of years. Cease also gives up a ton of power. The Cubs do have power in the lineup, and you can also run on Dylan Cease. I know the Cubs haven't stolen bases yet. I would expect them to run on Dylan Cease tonight if they get a chance. And I just stopped picking on this Cubs lineup right now. They are extremely underrated. Cease is going to be chalk, just like the other two Padres pitchers were, especially Darvish. And I'm going the opposite way, man. I'm playing Cubs against Dylan Cease instead of playing Cease himself. Cease, you want Cease at 40%, or do you want the Cubs at 3%? To me, if you're trying to win a GPP, that's a pretty easy call. The Cubs almost got me home on Monday night against you, Darvish, and I'll be hoping they kind of finish the job here. So I'm in on the Cubs. They're going to be my highest owned stack. I'll take the leverage against a chalk starting pitcher who walks guys, gives up home runs, lets guys steal bases, is prone to blow-ups, right? He does one thing well, strike batters out. I get it. But this Cubs team does a pretty good job of making contact. Also, pretty good hitting weather, about as good as it gets for San Diego. It should be 75, 80 degrees, winds blowing out to right field. So, yeah, contrarian take, I guess, number one for me here. More to come, I think, probably on the slate. But give me the Cubs over Cease. And Hendricks is another guy, like, I really don't want to play him, but he is 6,200, and you do have to play two pitchers on DraftKings tonight, unfortunately. I wish you didn't, but you do. So I guess maybe I'll mix him in, but not as much as a couple of the other cheap pitchers that we'll talk about here in a minute. So there's my rant on Cubs and Padres. We'll throw it over to you, Mangone. What are you doing with Dylan Cease and the rest of this game?
Yeah, I definitely am a Dylan Cease guy, right? There's definitely some bias there. I played him a lot.
Everybody loves playing Dylan Cease.
I'm part of the group. It might be a packed bandwagon, but I'm definitely up towards the front of the train, and I'm still going to be there today. I'll admit it's definitely not an easy matchup. I understand, like, this Cubs team been hitting the ball well. They've been impressive for sure. I mean, this is a team that, like, later on in the year we might just be like, dude, all these guys are like 5.5K, right? And they're just
that's what I'm saying. That's what they should be. So don't play Dylan Cease, Mangone. Jump off the train. It's going to crash again. This Padres pitching staff going down burning against the Cubs for the third night in a row tonight.
I'm not ready to do it yet, DC. I'm not yet there, but I'll admit I could maybe get there by the time we get to the end of the show, and maybe by the time my core is up on the site for today. But I still think he's in play. Like, if you're playing 150 like you are, like, I think it's hard not to play him. If I was you, like, I'd probably just, like, set a cap, right? I would cap it at, like, maybe 10% because you're well weighed under the field and you're still able to get exposure to it just in case he does have that ceiling performance. And then you'll be well overweight on the Cubs, I'm sure, no matter what. So
yeah, but the other thing is if I think he's the worst play on the slate, once you take ownership into account, which I do, same thing I thought about Darvish. Why would I play any of the worst play on the slate? I know you're saying, oh, so you have some outs. How about you just accept your loss for one night, and move on to the next one? I mean, there's two baseball slates every damn day. Why would I play who I think is the worst ownership considered play on the slate?
I just wish there was, like, more pitchers to choose from. That's the only reason.
But still, I just
like that. Yeah. That's the only reason I would counter that. I'd be curious what your teams look like and how much. I mean, maybe you're just going to be 100% on a pitcher or something. We'll see. I like the San Diego Padres. I think we get the Slam Diego Padres today. Kyle Hendricks sucks, right? He's one of these old guys that's, he seems like I'm not saying I'm predicting his last start like you do at times, DC, but it seems like the last start could be coming for old Kyle, right?
He doesn't have much left. I mean, he never did, but he's not great.
I'm not saying, I know you always like to predict the last start. Yeah. I'm not saying this is it, but I think we're getting close. That's all. I think we're getting close to that for him. It's been brutal for old Kyle Hendricks. And
Hendricks needs to embrace his what he should have been in life, like an accountant or a lawyer or something like that. You just look at this dude. He doesn't deserve to be a professional athlete. He needs to go find his true calling.
When the Cubs realize they're, like, actually in the race and this team is good, right? And the offense is carrying them, they're gonna be like, we can't trot this guy out here anymore. They're gonna move on from it. So I do really think, though, we have to like this offense. I mean, they have good value amongst their team, right? Profar in the 5-hole at 3.1K. Camporeale at 3.4 is a nice cheap punt. You got Wade at third base at 2.8 and Merrill at 2.9. I'm not saying these guys are amazing options. I'm just saying there's value amongst the lineup to help you get some really good 5-man stacks. I love the Padres today. They're going to be they're definitely top 3 for me right now, a top 3 stack on this slate. I don't know where I'm putting them yet, but they're no doubt top 3. It feels like for me, I have to like them. I understand your Cubs love for sure, the leverage and everything. I'm not totally there yet.
God, Mangone, come on. Use your thinking cap, Mangone. It's just an amazing spot to play.
I think the problem is I don't know what I'm doing with like Baltimore, Red Sox, and some other games that we have coming up. So I could get there. I'm just not there yet. Even Houston, I'm uncertain about. Like, there's just a lot of uncertain spots so far today.
You really don't want 5% Cubs. Been one of the best offenses so far against a 40% owned pitcher, Dylan Cease, who's prone to blow up. So that's really not something you're interested in. Come on.
Let me get further to the end of the show. Let's talk about these other ones. I'll admit, I typically, if I do something like the playbook and I dive deep, I typically have all my thoughts figured out. But some of the weather and just situations are really messing with my head. So I'm not there yet, but I can be sold by the end of the show. I could get there.
I'll keep trying. We got about 40 more minutes of me trying to sell you on the Chicago Cubs. At least I'll sell some of the viewers. Some of the viewers will go down with the Cubs ship with me for sure. Let's get to the next game on the slate: Miami and the New York Yankees. We've got Marcus Stroman on the hill for the Yankees, who's been really good results-wise through 2 starts against Houston and Toronto. So 2 pretty tough matchups. He's thrown 100 pitches in each of those starts. And yeah, I mean, he's Marcus Stroman, right? He's been around forever. We know what to expect. He's typically not going to get you many strikeouts. And in my opinion, like in a vacuum, way overpriced at 9,600 on DraftKings, 10.1K on FanDuel. I mean, what do you think this guy's average price has been over the last 3 or 4 years? I would guess, I don't know, pretty close to the 7,800 and 8,300 he was on the last 2 slates. I think that's kind of what he is, a $7,500 pitcher. Massive price boost here. I get it's the Marlins. It is a pretty good matchup for Stroman. But like, this is another one where like I'm fading Cease for different reasons. I don't want to fade Marcus Stroman. Cease is because I think there's leverage and he can get blown up, and I just love the bats against him. Stroman is because I just think he's overpriced for the amount of strikeout upside he has. So I don't really want to play Marcus Stroman, frankly. I'm more willing to play him than Cease. I think he's a little safer, and I don't like the Miami bats nearly as much as I like the Cubs bats. But Stroman also going to be very popular on the slate. He'll go opposite Ryan Weathers, who I still do have some faith in. He bounced back from a rough opening start, was pretty damn good against the St. Louis Cardinals, 16.5 points without the win. Got 6 strikeouts over 5 innings in that one. I still like his stuff. Listen, I'm playing both sides of this one. I'm going to play Ryan Weathers at 6,400. You know, he can go 5 or 6 innings, give you 90 to 100 pitches, does have strikeout stuff. But, I mean, I could totally see him melting down in this start, too, against the Yankees, who have looked good so far. We'll have plenty of Yankees bats in my lineups. But I do think there is at least a chance Stroman can give you 6 or 7 strikeouts here and perform well at low price and low ownership. Like I said, there are plenty of bats to spend on the slate. So, yeah, Weathers, I guess another pitcher that I am in on tonight, makes me very nervous. I honestly wish I didn't have to play him. I'm not like – I don't even really expect it to go well. I just think it goes well enough, you know, a high enough percentage of the chance of the time, rather, that he makes for a pretty good play at low ownership. So there you go. Both sides for me on Weathers and the Yankees. And then I'm kind of off of both sides on Stroman and the Marlins. What are your thoughts here, man, going Yankees and Marlins?
Yeah, I mean, Yankees-Marlins is definitely a game I wanted to get some of your thoughts on, and I was kind of curious about. I agree. I think you could play both sides of the weather situation. I didn't write up Weathers yet because I don't know. I couldn't totally get there, I didn't think. But I understand it. Like, if I run everything and I get some, I'm going to be okay with it. I'm curious, do you think the Yankees ownership is high or low today? That's what I was really trying to figure out, because I want to find low-owned offenses on this slate. And, like, I kind of think the Yankees get overlooked despite the team total. Now, with the Braves getting postponed.
I think they're going to be high owned.
Yeah. That's what I think now with the Braves being postponed, they get high owned. That's one of the worries I have. Sounds like you agree.
Yeah, Sabres got them at like 15 to 20%, which isn't crazy, but yeah. I mean, there's only 6 games to choose from. So,
correct. So they're naturally just going to get ownership. But I was
yeah.
kind of curious. So I think you can play both sides. I don't have any strong take on it. Like, obviously, Judge is a great play against any lefty in the league. So you're never going to, he hits 2 home runs, I won't be shocked. But I agree with the weather stuff that you said. I think he's in play, but not like this top play for me. I do think Stroman is a really good play here. I know Stroman, it's not just like this, the past 2 starts. He looked great last year, too. Sure, he fell out towards the end of the season, but so did the Cubs, right? Stroman kind of strikes me as a guy that, like, he kind of gives a shit when it matters, and then when it doesn't, he just doesn't. You know what I mean? He kind of strikes me as that kind of player. At least that's what it seemed like when he was with the Mets. He definitely didn't give a shit when he was with the Mets, and things weren't going great there. So
Yeah.
I think he's someone that against this Marlins team could do really well. I know the Marlins aren't this amazing team, like strikeout wise, like the Cincinnati Reds. It's a really great matchup, but I just think his floor ceiling is really safe. Yeah, he might not be in for like a 30 DK point game, but on this slate, I'm not asking for too much at pitching. It's kind of gross. I don't mind spending the salary for him. I think he's similar to a lot of pitchers we'll discuss, like Bradford later. I'd be curious to get some takes on that as we get later on. But I like Stroman. Stroman's in the conversation for sure today.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be. I totally get it with Stroman. Again, on a normal slate, I would have no interest in Stroman at this price point. And honestly, like, I don't think this matchup is that good for Stroman. I know the Marlins haven't hit that well recently, but if you just look at the lineup, like, there's a lot of lefties. They got a lot of guys who make some pretty decent contact up toward the top, short porch in right field. Yeah, I'm going to be mixing in some of these Marlins lefty bats against Stroman for sure. They'll be lower on. I don't like them nearly as much as the Cubs, but the more we talk about it, I do want to get some exposure to these guys. And then, of course, Yankees. Even though I like Weathers, it is a price ownership play mostly on him. And the Yankees clearly have a ton of upside. Like, I just think Weathers could get really wild here. Then you've got Judge and Stan that can, punish him if he can't throw strikes or whatever. So, yeah, it's one where I will end up playing both sides to some degree. All right, let's get to Baltimore and Boston. We've got Cutter Crawford on the hill for the Boston Red Sox. He's been pretty strong through 2 starts, both on the road, Seattle and LA. 2 teams who are pretty light hitting teams, frankly, against right-handed pitching. Gets the opposite of that here. We get the Orioles, who have called up top prospect Jackson Holliday, who will make his official MLB debut. He's 2K down in the 9-hole. Obviously, a number 1 prospect in all of baseball, can really hit. Was crushing it at AAA. I imagine he'll be a pretty popular play at 2K if you need some savings. Makes a lot of sense to me. I think we'll see a lot of, Cease, Stroman, Jackson Holliday type of builds tonight, which I get. But yeah, this Orioles team, I mean, making a ton of contact against righties. Hard for me to go to Crawford here. Feels like he might be due for a little step back. I don't think he's as good as he's shown so far. Also really struggled at Fenway Park last season, which is somewhat of a concern for me. He'll go against Cole Irvin, kind of a soft tossing lefty for the Baltimore Orioles. I don't have a lot of interest there either. I would rather play Crawford between the 2, but I won't have a ton of either of these pitchers. And then I do think the Orioles bats are somewhat sneaky, but they're not my favorite stack on this slate. Let's throw it to you for Orioles and Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, I like Crawford a little more than you, but I'll admit, like, when I was, looking at everything, I think Crawford's got really good upside for his price. When you look at the values, it's a little bit rough. Now, do I like those 9K pitchers more than Crawford? Yes, but if you're diving into the value plays, it's just there's not a lot of value plays on the board. Yeah. So I think his upside just can't be ignored. The problem that I'm running into is look at Baltimore. They're not a team that strikes out a lot. It's not the most ideal matchup. So I'm torn on it. I also think Crawford is the cheap pitcher that people might gravitate towards. And if ownership gets too high, I don't know if I'd want to invest that much in it. But I don't know. You see, it's hard to argue with his upside, right? Like, it's just one thing I'm going to have exposure because in MME formats, I think his ceiling is too good. And I know it's a pitching slate where we talked about playing some ugly plays, but I'm not playing guys like, Kyle Hendricks. I'm not playing Ross Stripling and some of these and Seth Lugo. So if I'm going to play value pitchers, I got to play someone. So Crawford's upside is just too hard to ignore. So I will have exposure. I'll probably be overweight on him. It's just hard to ignore Cutter Crawford. I understand it's a really difficult matchup. And I think it's one of those spots. If someone told me, hey, I'm playing Baltimore bats today, I wouldn't tell you that you're crazy. I think they're definitely in play. And I think Boston bats are in play. I love Tyler O'Neill. I think Tyler O'Neill he's been absolutely crushing the ball. I think he's in play. People won't want to play lefty Tristan Cassis. I'll be happy to. Same with Rafael Devers. The value plays of Pablo Reyes and Romy Gonzalez, those are guys that help make things work. Like we talk about it all the time. The guy is 2K, Romy Gonzalez. He's not like 3-3. And there's a big difference with that. And it can help you to get up from a Cutter Crawford up to a Marcus Stroman, right? Like that price difference matters or help you get up to 100 green. So don't ignore these Boston bats. I think they're a really good play today.
Yeah, I like offense on both sides of this game, and I think the Orioles are going to do some damage here. Jackson Holiday in the lineup. I have a pretty good feeling about them, so I will be mixing them in. All those lefties against Crawford, who struggles at Fenway, like I said. I get it with Crawford. I probably will mix him in as well, but I'm nervous for him. I can see things going really bad for him against this Baltimore offense. And yes, Tyler O'Neill, I think one of the very, very top one-off on the slate, just top overall plays. Been crushing the ball, gets a soft tossing lefty, who gives up home runs to righties. Looks like an unbelievable spot for Tyler O'Neill tonight. Definitely think he will go yard. Atlanta Braves and Mets would be next. That game is postponed, so do not play players from that game. That brings us to the last two games on this slate. It is Houston Astros and Kansas City Royals that we'll talk about first. 9.5 total in this one. We have Seth Lugo on the hill for the Kansas City Royals. He's been pretty good through two starts. Now, two of the best matchups in baseball, Minnesota, Chicago White Sox. Different story here entirely against this Astros squad, which obviously can crush the baseball. They got the two big lefties in there, Alvarez and Tucker, presumably tonight. But Lugo, he's at least a proven arm. I don't know. I think it's once you take into account ownership, he's probably going to be a guy that end up having to have some exposure to somewhat reluctantly, even in the tough matchup. And then the Royals will face Spencer Arrighetti, making, I believe, his MLB debut. Really, really rough numbers in the minor leagues. He walks a ton of dudes, hasn't had any success. Astros just needs a guy to fill the role, which we saw what happened to their last guy, that Henley, that they tried to do that for Framber Valdez. I think Arrighetti is potentially even worse than Henley. Not that he'll necessarily have worse results than that, but I do think this Royals lineup looks a little bit tasty tonight as well. And then Astros definitely in play against Lugo, even though I do think Lugo is an okay play himself. But I'll throw it to you, Mangone, for Astros and Royals.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to play Yordan Alvarez or Kyle Tucker against Lugo, I will not argue against that. I don't think I'm going to get to the full five-man today that much. I think listen, if anyone wants to play Houston, I won't argue. But I think there's better five-mans on the board that I'd rather get to. Like, I like the Padres more. I like the Rangers, who we'll talk about. I just don't think they're going to make the cut that much. I think the Royals are pretty interesting because of the value that they provide for you. That's one of the struggles that we have on this slate is we are trying to spend a pitcher a lot, it feels like. And we don't have a lot of bats that we can jam in there. I think you have to like this Royals offense. Of course, I want to get Bobby Witt Jr. in there. Bobby Witt Jr. is clearly going to be a really good play on this slate. You have value in like Vinny Pasquantino. MJ Melendez at 3.6, I think is a really good value play. Same with Nelson Vasquez. Adam Frazier at 2.9 helps make things work at a second base position you don't like. Hunter Renfroe, we know he can always take any 1 yard at 3.2K. It's just the value is really good on this team where I like this Royals offense. That's a team I kind of wanted to get a little more sold on getting onto this show, and I think I'm a little more sold on them, DC. And, wind is blowing in 10 miles an hour. It's 67 degrees, but honestly, weather sucks almost everywhere tonight, right? It's just not a great weather spot besides San Diego, and San Diego is not even a great spot for hitting typically, at least the park, right? So, Kansas City Royals are definitely in the conversation for me. I think they're a team that are going to be low owned, and I'm kind of getting a little more excited about as the slate moves on.
Yeah, I really like the Royals against this trash pitcher who I think is very good chance. Just melts down, walking guys. You can run on him, it looks like. And I can see the Royals do some damage here. Bobby Witt, MJ Melendez, my two favorite bats there. But really, up and down that lineup, Michael Garcia. Pasquantino hasn't done anything yet, but he is a very good hitter in general. I think he'll come around. So I'm in on the Royals. And, I don't have any problem with Houston either. I mean, they're just expensive, and I like going to other bats a little bit more. Like, I think the Yankees have more upside. I obviously like the Cubs. But certainly the Astros, don't overlook them entirely. Anything else here, Mangone, KC, and Houston? I think that's more or less it for me.
Yeah, I think if you had to take a stand, right, over or under on the Astros, where are you at on that? I think I'm slightly under. Not that they're bad plays, but they seem like a team that, like, I could see myself going even with the field or slightly under, just because I don't just have a huge take on them, but at the same time, it's like, okay, if I'm trying to get a little bit different, I do think these Astros will get under-owned. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to kind of end up fairly high on them just because I have the salary to spend because I don't want to play the expensive chalk pitchers. But yeah, I don't like them, like I said, quite as much as some other teams. So let's get to the last game. Then we'll do kind of the fun stuff, pitching, stacks, favorite hitters, all that stuff, and probably get out of here a little bit early because we are 25 minutes short on building our own lineups tonight as well. So any questions, you guys can throw those in chat. We will have a chance to answer those tonight before we go. But before we get to all that stuff, let's go over Oakland and the Texas Rangers. This one, another high total sitting at 9. Cody Bradford on the hill for the Rangers. It's been very good results-wise so far. 21 points against the Cubs, 26 points against Houston. Two tough matchups. Both of those in Texas, so he didn't get the benefit of great, cold weather or anything, and got the job done. I still have my question marks about Cody Bradford, how good he is. I would be, I don't know, one way to put it, like shorting his long-term stock. But I do think on this slate against this A's team, for me, he's got to be in play. Already proved he can go deep into games. Went through 7 2/3 innings against Houston through 97 pitches in that one. Texas has a rough bullpen that's a little worn out as well. So I do think if Bradford is rolling, they will let him go as deep into this game as he can, which makes him appealing. Obviously, a team to pick on. I will say I don't mind this A's contrarian stack. That 2-3-4 of Zach Geloff, J.D. Davis, Shea Langoliers with 3 home runs last night. They got some power against lefties. I wouldn't be surprised to see Oakland do some damage here against him. But nevertheless, Bradford, 9K on DraftKings. I do think he is a pretty good play. I do think he'll come in lower owned at least a little bit compared to Dylan Cease and Marcus Stroman, which I like. I still definitely think he's, overpriced in general, but everybody is. There just aren't, in my opinion, good pitching slates on this slate. You do got to play somebody. So Bradford on the short list for me. And then Stripling, man, I don't really want to play Stripling either, but at 6K, I do think he is at least a established arm. And, he could be okay. It's really hard to make a case for Ross Stripling other than the price tag and the slate in general. But I probably will have at least a few shares of Stripling in my pool. But yeah, of course, if you want to stack Texas, good way to go. And like I said, I do like these A's power bats as well. Throw it to you, man. Go Oakland and Texas.
Yeah, Oakland's definitely one of the top offenses on the slate. I mean, one thing that's really nice about their lineup.
Oakland or Texas?
Oh, sorry, Texas. Texas is the reason why is like, one, you have Semien Seager and Adolis Garcia. You have some really good power bats. They project well, clearly good spots. And you can mix and match some good value, like Josh Smith, 2.9K, Jonah Heim catcher, 3.6, Jared Walsh, 3.8. Even got Jankowski there, 2.3K as a value punt, and then Tavares at 3.4K. It's just a really, really good spot for them. You also don't have to worry about weather, which is kind of nice on this slate. I think they are going to be chalky. I think they're the chalkiest offense. Because of that, I'll probably be a little bit lower on the Rangers than everyone else. Like, I'm not going to make them a team where I just shove like 60% on and move on. I just think one thing I did at the start of the year, and then I kind of got away from it kind of by accident, was whatever team's the chalk, I want to be even with the field or lower, just slightly lower. I'm still going to get exposure to them, but I want to make sure I'm getting in those other good stacks that are like not secondaries, but like the tier 2 teams, like the tier 1 clear teams that everyone just says, I think I know are the best teams. I want exposure, but I want to be lower. I don't want to just go overweight like 80% or something crazy. I want to be able to mix and match these other offenses. I know kind of Steve talked about it on our recent show. He kind of said the teams that everyone just thinks are the clear-cut ones, they do good, but sometimes it's those secondary teams that kind of get there. I think that everyone is going to Texas and Oakland today. The reason they're going to Oakland is because we don't have value. They're going to mix and match these guys as mini stacks, and I just want to be lower on them. So when I get over the playbook after the show and make my stack rankings, these are not going to be teams that are number 1 and number 2 for me. I'm going to be on some of these other teams that we talked about earlier. So, and as we do our stack rankings here at the end, maybe one of them makes it as number 3, but they're not going to make it as 1 and 2. I just don't want to do that. I just think it's the wrong way to play MLB DFS, DC, especially on a shorter slate. I know you're going to like the Texas Rangers today. Honestly, you're fading some of these chalkier pitchers. Because you're fading some of these chalkier pitchers, maybe you can go more overweight on these offenses than I am. I am kind of playing some of these chalkier pitchers, so I have to find somewhere else to be different. So I'll have some Rangers, but I'm not just going to be well overweight on these guys. I think there's better offenses that we discussed earlier at lower ownership that I want to get to, and I'll obviously talk about when we get to our top stacks.
Yeah, it's a weird slate where you almost, at least I feel like I almost have to play some bad chalk one way or the other, and I would rather kind of do it with the bats and the pitching. But that's just me. I mean, it's not obviously necessarily saying it will turn out that way. That's just how I feel about the slate. P. Lally asks, can you run on Hunter Green? Yeah, I talked about that. And definitely went over Cincinnati and Milwaukee. Absolutely. Green allowed 16 stolen bases in 112 innings last year, which is a pretty high number. Already 3 stolen bases against Hunter Green in 10 innings so far this year. So, yeah, Brewers, I believe they lead the league in steals or close to it anyway. They should be off and running any chance they get against Hunter Green tonight. Frankly, the majority of their lineup, I think, is going to try to take advantage of that. So that is obviously one of the things that adds to the Brewers' appeal, at least for me. Any interest in those Oakland power bats, Mango? And I mentioned that 2-3-4 looks pretty good against Bradford, who is going to be pretty popular, I think.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about yesterday's slate. So, like, one thing I noticed on yesterday's slate is, like, 1, you needed Tyler Glass now, who was really expensive. And 2, because of that, you needed Acuna, right? Because he basically broke the slate. So then you needed value. And then Shea Langoliers hit 3 home runs. If anyone hits 3 home runs, they're obviously going to be on the winner. But before that 3 home run game, he was on the team because there's just a lot of value amongst Oakland. So if you spend up at your top end pitchers, I think Oakland is definitely interesting, and they make sense as mini stacks. I won't probably do the 5-man as much. I just think they make for better mini stacks because of the one-off powers that you have. Like, you talked about JD Davis, you talked about Gilov, you talked about Langoliers a little bit. Like, I think they're way better used as minis, and I think they're getting over-owned as 5-man stacks. I think that makes sense, right, DC? That's kind of how I see this slate playing out.
Yeah, someone asking Bradford leverage if Oakland is chalky. It's actually the opposite. It's true. Bradford is going to be pretty chalky. Seeing Oakland, 5% or less across the board. I mean, JD Davis down to 2% seems. I'm on FanDuel right now on Saber, but seems pretty low. Yeah, I like those Oakland power bats. I am with you, Mango. And I think they're better as one-offs or even just a 2-3-4 mini stack. I won't go to too many 5-man Oaklands. I think you can, but I definitely prefer trying to pick off just the guys most likely to hit a home run off Bradford or sometime during the game.
Yeah, and I didn't get to talk about Bradford, DC, but like I just wanted a little bit of pitching profile on him. Like, he seems like a younger version of Stroman to a degree. Is that kind of accurate? Some of the numbers I noticed, and Stroman's always been like a good ground ball guy. Isn't that kind of what – could you see Bradford just being a younger version of Marcus Stroman? That's kind of how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, he's left-handed compared to Stroman throwing from the right side. But, yeah, I think that's somewhat fair. I have real question marks just how good his stuff is. I do think he is kind of overrated right now just because he's pitched good 2 starts in a row. But I still think on this slate he's a pretty solid option. And I do think – I don't know. At least,
what do you think is the Bradford leverage on the Oakland chalk? I know Bradford's getting ownership, but like you could argue the A's are going to be between 15 and 20%. And basically, you could argue if Bradford crushes, like 1/5 of the lineups can die. And also, a lot of mini stacks could not get there overall.
Yeah. Whatever you play tonight, it's going to be, I think, somewhat uncomfortable. Maybe some people are, rubbing their hands together, ready to eat that Stroman Cease chalk. Obviously, I'm not one of those people. Let's do favorite stacks. We'll start with that. Your kind of just favorite overall stack, and then favorite contrarian stack. This one is a little tough for me because most of the stacks I like are contrarian. My favorite overall stack and contrarian stack is the Chicago Cubs against Dylan Cease. I think they've got way more upside than they're being given credit for. I will have more exposure to the Cubs than any other team on both sites. Not sure on everything I'm going to do. I'm pretty damn sure on that part of the slate. And I will go contrarian stack. I'll go with the Orioles against Cutter Crawford, who I do think is going to get a reasonable amount of ownership here. Orioles very, very tough against right-handed pitching. They also get a cheap option at the bottom of the lineup in Jackson Holiday if you do need a little bit of savings. Over to you, Mangone, for your favorite overall stack and favorite contrarian stack.
Okay. I guess so. Favorite overall stack is going to be the old Slam Diego Padres. It's a day that they're going to slam it home. I'm going to give 3 stacks for you guys. I'm not giving the Rangers or Oakland. I think they're good stacks, but again, I want to be well underweight on them today. So Slam Diego Padres is number 1. I'm going to follow it up with the Royals as my number 2 stack. I think there's a lot of good value on that team. I just think it's a spot where I even joked in the playbook. Who's the pitcher for the Astros today, DC?
Getty or something?
Yeah, I said Kansas City Royals versus a shitty pitcher. That's what I said. And that's exactly what we're getting, right? We're getting a guy that sucked in the minor leagues. I think it's a great spot for these Royals. And then number 3, I put the Red Sox in. I just think these power bats and the price tags on them, people gravitating towards the Yankees, gravitating towards these other Rangers, maybe some Padres. I just think this Red Sox offense goes completely overlooked. And I get Cole Irvin. He's a guy that can, ground ball guy, mitigate the damage. But, we're just betting on some talent here at low ownership. So those are my top 3 offenses on the day.
Yeah, I can name more minor league baseball players than I would care to admit, but I had never heard of Spencer Arrighetti prior to today, which should give you some idea of his overall talent level.
That makes me like the Royals even more. Like the more we talk about it, I'm covering AP today. I might have a 5-man Royals in my core for AP as
wave that AP Royals flag. Yeah, it could be coming tonight. I'll be in on the Royals as well. Your most important pitcher, Mangone. So the pitcher you think you'll be higher on compared to the field, right? If you're playing 40% Dylan Cease, I would say you're neutral on him today. Yeah. And I'll go first. I'll give you a minute to think about it. I wish it wasn't the case, but I do think my most important pitcher today will end up being Ryan Weathers. I still believe in the talent. Extremely risky, but at 6,400, and I'm seeing 8%. That feels okay to me. Again, very risky play, but I do think at least the upside is there, kind of compared to some of these other guys. So I'll go with Mr. Weathers myself. Mangone, your most important pitcher tonight.
While you're doing that, how about do this? Because I'm still a little bit thinking it through. I want to know the ownerships on them all. Can you name all the ownerships? I'm pulling up at the same time, but I think this will help people. What are all the ownerships on the top, the top end arms, those guys above 9K? How about you list the ownerships for everyone? Because I think that's helpful.
Yeah, DraftKings ownerships. Saber updated it, 20 minutes ago. They have Dylan Cease at 43, Hunter Green at 40, Marcus Stroman at 31, Cody Bradford 27, Cutter Crawford 24.
Okay, I think so.
I don't think any of those numbers.
Yeah, the thing I keep going through is I know you're not a big believer in Bradford, but man, it's if Bradford does well, that Oakland chalk could absolutely die. So, because for me, pitcher rankings, and I know I'm not giving your answer, I'm just talking it through and I'm talking in circles, but I think Green's upside is amazing if he's going to have the weather in his favor. I'm curious how that all plays out. But I think it's going to be Marcus Stroman. If you told me a guy I want to put in my core right now and I feel confident isn't going to kill me, it's Marcus Stroman right now. And I think the ownership is like too spread out where it doesn't feels like all these guys are going to get ownership above 9K and there's not a huge difference. I think Cease will probably be the highest, but I think in the end of the day, Stroman's the guy I'm going to have the biggest stand on after thinking it all through.
The three condom Marcus Stroman play. All right. You go for that, man. Going.
It's just there's nothing to love, man. Like it's so
I know.
tough.
I can't give you 2 out of a time because my pitchers are probably going to do shitty too. So let's do a home run call. I'm stealing yours because he was mine too. Mr. Tyler O'Neill taking Cole Irvin deep in Fenway. Yeah, that's right, man. I'm going first. I'm stealing your Tyler O'Neill call. You're going to have to pick someone else on this slate to go deep for the people.
All right, give me value play, Mr. Jake Cronenworth for the San Diego Padres. We'll say he takes some yard and hits a bomb today.
All right, we got Cronenworth and O'Neill, and finally we will wrap the show up with your overall play of the day. Obviously, a hitter. I'll let you pick first, Van Gogh. I'll let you go first. I don't want to steal your guy again. So your favorite kind of hitter on the slate overall.
Yeah, favorite hitter overall. We'll stick with the old Padres, and we'll go with Mr. Fernando Tatis. We'll take him as the overall best play.
I will go with Cody Bellinger for the Chicago Cubs. Going to dong one off of Dylan Cease. Maybe a jack in a bag, a combo meal, a home run and a steal for Mr. Bellinger, and hopefully, frankly, a couple more of those Cubs as well. Like I said, very, very high on the Cubs tonight. That'll do it for this show. Crazy slate tonight. We're going to have to pay attention, obviously, to that weather in Cincinnati. Hopefully, it's good to play. Otherwise, our limited options will be narrowed down even further. The show will be back, I believe, tomorrow morning. I believe we have an early, short Thursday slate. Obviously, we got the Masters coming up, man. Do you have your Masters lineups locked in? Do you have a Masters plan? You play a little bit of golf, I know. Are you excited for the Masters tomorrow?
I am excited for the Masters. My Masters plan is not done, but my plan is to look at the odds tonight and grind it out while I listen to the show with Big T and what's it called? Andy Lack. They'll be on there talking. I was going to be on with Big T, but Andy's hopping in for me instead. I was going to host it up, but I'm going to listen to them. There's one guy I do like. I know Big T likes him as well, and I've been a Bryson homer for a while. I will be very heavy on Bryson. I like looking at his odds. I like looking at his price. That was one guy I saw, and I said, he will no doubt be a core play for me. So Bryson will be one of my core plays. Not everything else is done and finalized. I'll be finalizing it all tonight.
He's not so fat anymore, right, Bryson? He lost some of that when he got on the.
He did. He lost it all, and he basically said some of the ideas I had were good, but some weren't, right? And so he is kind of, I think, trying to find that middle ground now. And I think this is where we start to finally see the real Bryson emerge.
I did call that was not going to work out that well for Bryson, purposely gaining 50 pounds as a golfer. It doesn't seem like it would help with your, flexibility and all that stuff. But anyway,
the nice thing is he's the type of guy that's trying to grind all the edges. And sometimes it doesn't work out and you go a little too far, but he's going to correct it. And I'm telling you, this dude is I think he's, obviously we don't get to watch him all the time because he's on live, but I think he's in for a nice little run of majors over the next 2 to 3 years. So one of those things I'm doing probably every single major going forward is, what is Bryson? I don't care what the number is for the next 3 years. It's going to pay off. I'm betting on Bryson.
All right. Riding with Mr. DeChambeau is Mangone. I'm with you. I haven't looked too much yet, getting through this baseball slate, and then I'll be diving in, reading the articles on the site, watching shows, and hopefully, getting the Snyder Soldiers into my lineup for the Masters. Should be an awesome time tomorrow morning. We'll be here for the baseball show as well. Should be a very fun weekend of sports. We've got UFC 300 coming up on Saturday. I know Mangones can't wait to fade that card, but it's gonna be a good one.
DC, actually, speaking of the UFC, I was actually going to buy the card and watch it. And I actually have a wedding this weekend in Winter Park. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to put UFC on my phone. I might actually watch via my phone while I'm at a wedding and then find an illegal stream afterwards. We'll see. So I'm I'm looking forward to it because I'll be at a wedding, not enjoying myself.
I got a problem. My parents are going to be in town for this weekend as well. So,
Oh no.
No surprise, not UFC fans, but I might have to, drag their ass to the bar to watch some late night fights because I'm not missing UFC 300. Sorry, parents, you're going to have to suck it up and deal with it.
I'm jealous. I wish my parents were coming. I can convince them to do that rather than go up to a wedding, but it is what it is. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I'll still have fun, but I wanted to sit and watch the fights actually.
I'm watching these fights. I would love for you to join me, but you can do your own thing if you want to do that too. All right. We'll get out of here. Thanks for watching. As always, hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. Promo code DC15 gets you 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. For Mangone, I'm DC, and we're out of here.